All right, welcome to our explainer. So today we're jumping into a topic that a lot of people find pretty exciting, but also, let's be honest, a little intimidating: trading. Let's start breaking it all down.
So, have you ever thought about getting into trading, but the second you do, it just feels like a lot? If that's you, trust me, you are not alone. Not by a long shot.
For most people starting out, it's kind of like staring up at this giant, massive mountain, and you can't even see a path to the top. But here's the thing about any big journey: it's really just a bunch of small, totally manageable steps. And that's what we're going to do here: give you a map for those first few steps. Okay, so before you start any climb, you gotta know why you're even doing it, right? For a trader, that all starts with understanding what the basic goal of this whole game even is. So, what is trading? Well, at its very core, it's just the act of buying and selling stuff. Financial things like stocks, crypto, currencies. And the goal? It's simple: to make a profit as their prices move around. Really, it all comes down to that classic phrase you've probably heard a million times: buy low, sell high. That's it. That's the idea you're trying to nail over and over again. Now, it sounds super easy, but as we're about to see, putting it into practice is a whole different story. All right, so just like any adventure, you need to prepare. You wouldn't climb a mountain without gear, right? So let's pack our knowledge bag with all the essential stuff you need before you even think about hitting the trail. First things first, you've got to pick your terrain. What are you actually going to trade? There are so many options. You've got stocks from big companies, the wild world of cryptocurrencies, foreign exchange or Forex, and even things like gold and oil. Okay, so with all those choices, which path should you take? Look, the best advice for any beginner is this: pick one market. Just one, and get to know it really, really well. Stocks are usually a pretty solid place to start because the risk is a bit more moderate. Those other terrains like crypto and Forex, they're kind of like the expert level trails. You'll want to save those for when you've got some more experience under your belt. All right, next up, how are you going to read the map? Basically, there are two main ways to think about this. You've got technical analysis. Think of this like being a weather forecaster. You're studying charts, looking at past data, and trying to predict what's going to happen next. Then there's fundamental analysis. This is more like being a detective. You're digging into the real value of an asset, the company's health, the economy, to figure out what it's truly worth. Honestly, most good traders end up using a mix of both. Okay, your bag is packed, you've looked over the map, now it's time for the exciting part. It's time to actually put your boots on the trail and turn all this theory into real action. So, what are your first actual steps on this trail? Well, they're pretty clear. First, you'll open a trading account with a broker that's easy for beginners. But then, and listen, this part is absolutely non-negotiable. You practice with a demo account. This is where you trade with fake money. It lets you get the hang of things and, more importantly, see how your own emotions react, all without risking a single real dollar. And from there, you have to get obsessed with managing your risk. And speaking of risk, this right here might be the single most important rule in all of trading. Are you ready? Never, ever risk more than 1 to 2% of your total capital on a single trade. I'm serious. Why? Because this rule isn't about getting rich. It's about staying in the game long enough to actually learn how to win. Awesome, so you're officially on the trail. But now we gotta ask, are you a sprinter or more of a marathon runner? See, trading isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. Finding a rhythm that works for you is absolutely critical if you want to be in this for the long haul. So what's your style going to be? Are you a scalper, in and out of trades in minutes, making tiny profits all day? Or maybe a day trader, closing out all your positions before the market closes? Or maybe you're a swing trader, holding on for a few days or weeks to catch a bigger price move. Your personality, your schedule, that's what's going to decide the right pace for you. Okay, so when you're finally ready to use real money, how much should you start with? The advice here is to start unbelievably small. Seriously, maybe just 20 bucks. And here's the crucial thing to understand. Your goal at the beginning is not to get rich. Your goal is to learn how this game feels when you have actual, real skin in it. And that's the thing. The learning, it just never stops. Your toolkit needs to have a few key things. A trading journal, you got to track every single trade, the good and the bad. A constant diet of books and videos to keep studying the craft. And you need to get good with charting tools. But maybe most important of all, pick one strategy and just focus on mastering that one thing before you try to do everything at once. All right, we've talked about the what and the how. But now we get to what is, without a doubt, the most important part of this entire journey, the internal one. We're talking about your mindset. This is the view from the summit.
I really want you to let this sink in for a second. The charts, the news, the markets themselves, they are not your biggest problem. The single biggest challenge you will ever face as a trader is your own mind.
And here's the really blunt truth. This is why most beginners fail. It's almost never because their strategy was bad. No. It's because their emotions, we're talking raw fear and greed, completely took over and made them throw their entire plan right out the window. So how do you actually win this mental game? Well, it comes down to 3 golden rules. First, be patient. This is not, and I repeat, not a get-rich-quick thing. Second, when you lose a trade, and trust me, you will lose trades, do not try to win it back with some emotional revenge trade. And finally, above all else, stay disciplined. Stick to your plan, stick to your rules, no matter what. And, that really brings us to the final, most important point. If you start this whole journey thinking your goal is to make a quick buck, you're probably going to end up disappointed. But if you change your goal, if your goal is to master a really complex and fascinating skill, well, you've already set yourself up for a much, much more rewarding climb. So, we're going to end this journey with a question for you. And it's not how to trade. The real question is why. Why do you want to do this? Is your goal to find a winning lottery ticket? Or are you ready to actually master a craft? Because your answer to that question, that's going to determine everything. Thanks for joining me.